Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I'm Rabbi Andy Green, and I serve at this pulpit, at this congregation, Or Tzion. It's wonderful to see many of you from the congregation and many of you from beyond in our community here to learn. And I'm so grateful to the Bureau of Jewish Education for putting on important programming like Passages. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Rahel Muslia. Did I pronounce it? Almost. Okay, we're going to learn how to pronounce this correctly. But I have a bio, so we'll see how that goes. Through the vivid prism of her family story, Rahel Muslia? Rachel Matzliach introduces audiences to the distinctive heritage of the Jews of India and Iraq. The seventh generation of a Calcutta family, she traces her roots to 17th century Baghdad. Her multifaceted visual, song, and story presentations offer a rare and intimate view of a rich culture little known to most. Rachel is an award-winning journalist, author, singer, storyteller, and educator. Her articles have appeared in publications including the New York Times and Hadassah magazine. Her books include Apples and Pomegranates, a family seder for Rosh Hashanah, and Why on This Night, a Passover Haggadah for family celebration. She's a pioneer as a female prayer leader in the Sephardi Mizrahi community and has recorded a CD of Shabbat and holiday melodies. Rachel leads Jewish heritage tours to India every November and February, which she infuses with personal, spiritual, and musical insights, as well as her knowledge of India's Jewish history. This is so cool. I can't wait to hear more. And now, Rachel Matzliach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. It's so wonderful to be here. And I would like to greet you with not just shalom, but namaste. And how many of you have been to India? Whoa! How many of you are wanting to go to India very badly? Okay, so I came to the right place. And you know that namaste means I bow to the divine in you. So it's a greeting like shalom, hello, goodbye, and also has that spiritual side to it, like shalom does. So shalom and namaste. Most people, when they hear I'm from India, are surprised. I don't look typically Indian, and I only wear a sari occasionally to dress up on the Jewish heritage tours that I've led for the past 9 years. Hold on one second. I was born in Calcutta and can trace my family back to 1820 in Calcutta. And here I am with my parents and my 2 sisters. It was just a few years ago, but you can guess which one I am in this picture. Yeah, you got any ideas? The curly-haired one? So my family was part of the Baghdadi Jewish community in India, and we emigrated to the United States in 1964, but India always remained in my heart. Here we are on the ship, docking in New York, the SS United States, and soon to have our first glimpse of the Statue of Liberty. So my co-leader on our tours is a master tour guide, Joshua Shapurkar. He's from India's Bene Israel community, and he lives in Bombay, today called Mumbai. On every trip, I discover another dimension of India's richness, beauty, and vibrant culture, which I will share with you today. Everybody knows the Taj Mahal, of course, but in addition, there are architectural gems and spectacular mirrored palaces, all types of transportation from bicycle rickshaws in Old Delhi, elephants in Rajasthan. And then there is the amazing food. How many of you are hungry and haven't had dinner yet? So here you go. This is a thali. It's a big metal platter with all kinds of tasting dishes, and there's always a surprise around the corner. There are what look like Magen David all over India, on monuments, on the backs of taxis, and even on elephants. So you might think that this is a Jewish symbol. It definitely helps us to feel at home in India, but in fact, it's a good luck sign across India, and you can tell that it's not a Jewish symbol here because of the Om sign in the middle of the intertwined triangles. So that means it's the unity of mind, body, and spirit. So I want to share a brief video with you to introduce you to India's sights and sounds. That's the famous naan. So I hope you enjoyed that and you saw a little bit of India's other religious traditions. What a lot of people don't know very much about is India's Jewish history, which is a rare, benevolent history. And we explore it in depth as we travel all over India and we visit synagogues and Jewish communities. This is the Magen David Synagogue in Calcutta, where my father was the rabbi, where my family prayed for generations. And this is the very famous Pardesi Synagogue in Cochin, and we'll talk a little bit more about these Jewish communities. So first I want to just situate us. Here's the map of India, and here are India's main Jewish communities. Bombay, today called Mumbai, Cochin in the south, Calcutta, again called Kolkata today. There are a few Jews in Delhi, in Ahmedabad, and in Pune. So it's important to understand where these communities are located, but also that the history of each Jewish community is different one from the other. There's no such thing as one kind of Indian Jew. So Jewish roots in India stretch back probably to biblical times. The book of Esther tells us that King Ahasuerus ruled. Anybody know? Go ahead, Rabbi. Mehodu ve'ad Kush, from India to Ethiopia. And I especially love the fact that Hodu has a double meaning. It means India, but it also means praise God. And how much better can you get that than that for a double entendre? So the Kochini Jews in South India trace their heritage, their origins in India to trade in the time of King Solomon, and later Jews escaping the Inquisition also found refuge there. The Bnei Israel Jews of Bombay claim that their ancestors escaped persecution in Israel around the time of the Maccabees. And the Baghdadi Jews set up thriving communities in Bombay and Calcutta and throughout the Orient beginning in the 18th century. We trace our heritage all the way back to the Babylonian exile. The Baghdadis came to India for trade and to escape plague and persecution in Baghdad and Basra and the surrounding communities. And so that was my great-grandfather in the previous picture, and this is my mother's family. My grandfather also came from Baghdad to India in the early 1900s. And one more community, the Bnei Menashe in northeast India, say that they are descendants of the lost tribe of Menashe that was exiled by the Assyrian regime about 2,700 years ago. So India was really a haven for Jews. There was never any indigenous anti-Semitism in any of our communities. We lived alongside our Hindu and Muslim neighbors in harmony and freedom. At the height of the Jewish community in the 1940s and 50s, there were probably about 40 or 50,000 Jews in all of India. Today, the community has dwindled to about 35 or 3,700, amidst a population of, what's the total population of India? 1.4 billion, mostly Hindus as well as Christians. 150 million Muslims, Christians, Parsis, Jains, and Sikhs. Most Jews left during the chaotic period after Indian independence and the jubilant establishment of the State of Israel just a year later, and most are now in Israel. Also in England, Canada, the United States, and Australia. So we never were afraid in India to practice and observe our Judaism. And so I thought I would teach you this song. How many of you know this song, Kol Ha'olam Kulo? It goes, Kol Ha'olam Kulo, Gesher Tzar Me'od. So I'll sing it in Hebrew. It means the whole world is a very narrow bridge. And the main thing to recall is not to be afraid at all. The words were written by Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, but it came to India because despite the fact that we lived for centuries in harmony and freedom, in 2008 there was a terrorist attack that came from outside India. That's why I always say no indigenous anti-Semitism. It came from a terrorist group in Pakistan. And then the youth group in Mumbai translated this song into Hindi. So we'll sing it in Hebrew, and then I'll teach you the Hindi. So here's the Hebrew. Kol Ha'olam Kulo, sing if you know it. Gesher Tzar Me'od, Gesher Tzar Me'od, Gesher Tzar Me'od. Kol Ha'olam Kulo, Gesher Tzar Me'od, גשר צר מאוד. והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. Okay, ready for the Hindi? Repeat after me. Ye sari dunya. Ek chota sapul. So you say that 3 times. And then, sabse badi bat. Again, that was sabse badi bat. Kisi se Dannah. Dannah nahi. Okay, so now repeat after me. First me, then you. Okay? Ye sari dunya. Ek chota sapul. Ek chota sapul. Ek chota sapul. Ye sari dunya. Ek chota sapul. Ek chota sapul. Sabse badi bat. Sabse badi bat. Kisi se Dannah. Dannah nahi. Sabse badi bat. Sabse badi bat. Kisi se Dannah nahi. Kisi se Dannah nahi. So as I said, India was very welcoming to the Jewish communities. Then, while we definitely celebrate the establishment of the State of Israel and the incoming of exiles from all over the world, it definitely drew most of India's Jews to Israel. But India's Jews were pioneers in many fields and made vast contributions to the fabric of Indian society. They were businessmen and philanthropists like David Sassoon. They were 4-star generals like Jack Jacob, who changed the course of Southeast Asian history during the partition of India and Pakistan. They were Bollywood stars, including Ruby Myers, known as Sulochana, who starred in 70 films, and she's actually my first cousin twice removed. You can see the resemblance, right? And also some Eastern European Jews who lived in India, including Valdemar Mordecai Hafkin, who developed the vaccine for the bubonic plague and lived in Calcutta and in Mumbai. So we're going to start our actual tour in the villages near Mumbai. Mumbai today is a city of 22 million, and we are going to take a ferry to the villages 30 miles south of Mumbai. And once we land, we're going to get into a tuk-tuk, an auto rickshaw, which will be just like this. Hope you enjoyed that ride. Okay, we'll move on. So the tuk-tuk is going to take us to a beach. Why a beach? We're not going to swim there, but this is the beach where the Bnei Israel say that they were shipwrecked in 175 BCE. Perhaps they were escaping the Hellenist persecution that caused the Maccabees to rebel. Only 7 couples survived, according to their tradition. And since they had lost everything in the shipwreck, they had no guidelines for practicing Judaism. As the centuries passed, they lived peacefully in the villages that dotted the coast, plying their trade as coconut oil pressers and farmers. They kept the rituals, they remembered certain laws of keeping kosher and circumcision. They remembered just one line of the Shema, but they recited it on every occasion from birth to death. Above the lintels of their doorways, they placed a palm print that had been dipped in sheep's blood. It was changed every Pesach. You can still see this today, although they also have, just in the villages, they do have regular mezuzot as well. But this was their mezuzah, based on the lamb's blood smeared on the Israelites' doorposts before the Exodus. Here is a monument near the landing place, and the top is shaped like the letter Shin for Shema. So most of the community moved to the city of Bombay when the British began governing the city and opened up educational and employment opportunity. But there are still vestiges of what life was like here. In the city of Alibag, until very recently, there was a home with, now this is a real Magen David, and an aleph inside for the family name Avraham. There are still 2 synagogues standing in the villages. Once these villages were home to hundreds of families. And now this particular synagogue that we're looking at here is in the town of Alibag, which is a resort area for Mumbaikars. It's called Magen Avot, and here is one of our groups standing in front of the synagogue. Here I am kissing probably the biggest mezuzah I've ever seen in my life, made of local marble, and it was just renovated this past year, so you can see how beautiful it is, and just a modest building. So when we were here just this past November, we met somebody who grew up in Bombay, and now she lives in Israel, and she came back to visit. So this is a special lamp for Elijah, because the Bnei Israel believed that Elijah the prophet rescued them from the shipwreck, and so they venerate Elijah the prophet in many, many ways. Here is, I believe in music being a vessel to show how our culture, how our musical culture and our heritage is influenced by our tradition, but also by the culture around us. So this is Joshua, and he's singing a song for Simchat Torah called Hallelujah, and here he is. So we travel by bus within the cities, and I love this contrast of old and new. There's our very sleek, modern bus, and then there's the bullock cart behind it. And similarly, when we go back to Mumbai, you can see the contrast of the modern city and a fishing village in front of it. So now we're going to just go on a visit of some of Mumbai's synagogues. Sha'ar HaRachamim is the first synagogue in Bombay. It was built in 1796. Sha'ar HaRachamim means Gate of Mercies. It was built by a Bnei Israel soldier who served in the British Army He was captured by the Muslim ruler Tipu Sultan, and he made a vow that if he escaped with his life, he would build a house to God. And so, do you think he escaped with his life? Yes, because we have the synagogue standing as a result. Another B'nai Israel synagogue is Tiferet Israel. You can see the lamps everywhere. It's, again, a modest building, but one of the most active synagogues in Mumbai, with a lot of youth who have learned to read Torah and come every Shabbat. Here is, you can see the Eliyahu lamp again, the triangular lamp, and the Ner Tamid, the eternal light, in front of the ark in the special design of the B'nai Israel. Just as some of us in the United States need English in our prayer books, so in Mumbai, this is a prayer book, Siddur, in the local language of Marathi. And all the synagogues, almost, in India are Orthodox. The synagogue in Delhi is not. It's egalitarian. But this synagogue is unusual in that the women's section is side by side with the men's section, as opposed to in a higher gallery. And Magen Hasidim is the place where most weddings in the B'nai Israel community take place. The JDC opened a JCC in Mumbai about 20 years ago, and they have vibrant educational and cultural programs. There are still about 100 Baghdadi Jews in Bombay, probably a little bit less even than that. Baghdadi, by the way, is the umbrella term for any Middle Eastern Jew. You don't have to be from Baghdad, from Iraq. What do you think the most prominent name, the Baghdadi name, is in? Do you know any Baghdadi Jews? I heard. David Sassoon. So he's probably the most prominent Baghdadi name that you have heard of. Between 1825 and 1835, a period of plague and persecution in Baghdad caused its Jews to find refuge in India. David Sassoon arrived penniless in Bombay in 1832, but eventually he founded businesses that traded and exported silk, spices, cotton, metals, and opium. The family flourished and became known as the Rothschilds of the East, although I like to say that the Rothschilds were the Sassoons of the West. It all depends on your perspective. And this gesture that he is doing with his hands, poteach et yadecha, is that when we say this line in the prayers, we always open our hands tangibly and ask for God's bounty. One of Mumbai's most well-known landmarks, Gateway of India, was built to welcome the British monarchs in 1911 with contributions from the Sassoons. Originally, the Baghdadi Jews were welcomed by the B'nai Israel, who were already settled in Bombay, to pray together in their synagogues. But when the community became large enough in the 1850s, they began building their own synagogues. So this is one of the oldest, the Magen David synagogue, not just Magen David, but also named for David Sassoon, David Sassoon. You can see how different it is from the B'nai Israel synagogues. It's much larger, a structure, very Western, columns, clock tower, English name of the synagogue in the front. And in the interior, this is a typical Baghdadi synagogue design. The ark is in the front. What direction do we face in India when we pray? West. So facing west. So this is the ark called a heichal, a kind of a palace. And the teba, as we call the bima, is in the center of the sanctuary. The table is flat so that the Torah scrolls, which are in cases, wooden cases covered in silver, can be read standing up vertically. and the men will sit around the sanctuary, and the women will be in the women's gallery. If you come to the synagogue on our tours, you'll see groups of students. They are students in the Sassoon School, and at this time of the history of Bombay, 95% of the students in the school are Muslim. They are not Jewish, but they still learn some prayers in Hebrew. And this is typical of the relationship between the Muslims and the Jews in India. We really share a lot of the same traditions of, of eat food and one God and so on. And so Jews and Muslims often lived in the same neighborhoods. So, in fact, weddings take place in the big courtyard behind the synagogue, and that ground is often rented out by Muslims as they believe it's a good luck place to get married. Who's been to Bombay? Who here has been to Bombay? Have you visited the synagogues? So this is the Knesset Eliyahu Synagogue, also built by the Sassoons in 1884 by Jacob Sassoon, David's grandson. It was renovated in February 2019. Originally it was light blue, robin's egg blue it was called, and now it's this very elegant blue and white building. We always go there for Shabbat on our tours, but to get there, we always enjoy the diversity of street life. So it's just a little bit to show you the contrast of the city, the practical and the spiritual. This is the interior of the synagogue. It's just this gorgeous Victorian green and gold, and the stained glass windows and the teba. And now we are going to stop, and I'm going to sing another song for you, which is a song about Eliyahu. Just as in the Ashkenazic tradition, we sing, what do we sing on the end of Shabbat? Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu. Okay, now you got it. So I'm going to do a different song about Eliyahu. It's called El Eliyahu. El Eliyahu Bizchut Eliyahu Hanavi Havena. So the accompaniment is from my CD, which is called Hodu, Jewish Rhythms from Baghdad to India. And I will sing it for you, and please feel free. The chorus is not hard, so please feel free to join along. It's a little bit of like Baghdadi Indian karaoke that you're going to hear now. And feel free to clap and just enjoy. No, I didn't want to do that. El Eliyahu, Bizchut Eliyahu, Hanavi Havena, Boyer Tom Richabona, Bashevi Bo, Lo Shachav Libo, Gam Lo Rashena, El Eliyahu, Bizchut Eliyahu, Hanavi Havena, Rav Machli Birot, Kach Shiyum Sanot, Yafot Uvriyot, Basar Vatirena, El Eliyahu, Bizchut Eliyahu, Hanavi Havena. Clap your hands. El Eliyahu, Bizchut Eliyahu, Hanavi Havena, Ashketzur Merosh, Tzare Navil Tosh, Yomenai Likdosh, Israel Tishena. tareot yeshael korot lachulchan osot kolan batarona hamalach hagoel lifnei dal shoel ana ha'el el Avram hakrena el Eliyahu b'zchut Eliyahu hanavi havena el Eliyahu b'zchut Eliyahu hanavi havena el Eliyahu b'zchut Eliyahu hanavi havena. You know, we always welcome Eliyahu Hanavi because Elijah's supposed to bring a time of peace. And so no matter what day of the week it is, I love to sing the song because there's no better wish that we could ask for. If you really like this melody, it's the same tune we sing for Ein Keloheinu, and it goes, Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, and so on. You like that? So we're going to leave Mumbai, and we're going to fly south to Cochin, today called Kochi. And it's a very different landscape, this landscape of lush canals and palm trees. Here's a little snippet. And the very famous Chinese fishing nets, as you see in these lush canals. And then we come to a street sign that says Jew Street. So to our ears, it might sound anti-Semitic or racist, but in Cochin, it is an emblem of autonomy, the proud label of a Jewish community that for centuries lived in peace and harmony with its Hindu neighbors. The first time I went to Cochin, I was completely shocked by these two windows side by side. You see one window has Magen David on it, and the other window has what look like swastikas. So you might know that the swastika that the Nazis co-opted came from the swastik. It's another good luck sign in India. In India, it has no anti-Semitic connotations. Just like the Magen David, it's a good luck sign, and it decorates all kinds of buildings and monuments and shrines, and here it's decorating a window. Today, most of the shopkeepers are Muslim. In Cochin on Jew Street, and there are just 15 Jews who live in Cochin out of the 2,000 Jews who lived here at one time. So they have names. These shopkeepers have named their buildings to entice Jewish tourists. So here's Shalom, and here's Jewtown Road. A little bit of the history of Cochin's Jewish community. It's actually the source of much debate, both in the community and among scholars. One tradition claims that Jews arrived in the time of King Solomon, as I mentioned before, that they were traders in gold, ivory, spices, and peacock feathers. Another tradition says that the first Jews arrived in Cantor, which is a city about 25 miles north of Cochin, in the 1st century CE, after the destruction of the Second Temple. The community treasures these copper plates that scholars date to the 11th century, and they detail the privileges granted to the leader of the community, whose name was Yosef Rabban. Cantor was destroyed by forces of nature, or the Portuguese who established the Inquisition in Goa in the 1500s. A few survivors escaped south to Cochin, where the Maharaja granted them a large piece of land adjoining his palace. So his palace is here in the front, and you can see the clock tower of the synagogue behind it. In fact, Matan Cherry is a combination of Hebrew and the local language Malayalam. Matan in Hebrew means gift, and cherry in Malayalam means land, so gift of land. Jews fleeing the Spanish Inquisition in the early 16th century also reached Cochin, followed by immigrants from Baghdad, Yemen, and other parts of the Middle East. The newcomers were called Pardesis, foreigners, and they constructed their own synagogue in 1568, just 30 yards from the Maharaja's palace. At its height in the mid-20th century, Cochin's Jewish population numbered about 2,000, with 8 synagogues on Jewtown Road and in the surrounding communities. Most Cochin Jews made Aliyah in the 1950s. This is a historic picture. You can see the members of the community, and on the Shaliach, an emissary from Israel, big picture of Theodore Herzl, as the community was being encouraged to make Aliyah. So here is the synagogue, the Pardesi synagogue, built in 1568. It's a whitewashed building with a gabled clay tile roof designed with Dutch, Portuguese, and Indian architectural elements. And this clock tower was an addition, was added in 1761, and it has 3 faces. The Roman numerals face the main thoroughfare of Jew Street, and in the courtyard of the synagogue, there are Hebrew letters, and then facing the Maharaja's palace, the letters are in Malayalam. So the synagogue today only holds services on high holidays and sometimes on Shabbat in the tourist season when there are enough Jews for a minyan. But the sanctuary is one of the most beautiful I've ever seen. All the Cochin synagogues are built in this same very distinctive architecture. So here it is. It's like an intimate palace of light and glass and gold, very colorful. So this is the Teba, the bima in the center, facing the Heichal, which is that red and gold ark that you see. But when you walk inside, there's this row of colorful lamps, and all the Cochin synagogues, all the synagogues in Kerala are patterned after the temple in Jerusalem. So these 2 columns, these metal columns, are called Boaz and Yachin, as they were in the temple. Here's a better view of the ark. It's just spectacular. And you see the Sifrei Torah are in wooden cases covered with silver, and one has a crown of gold that was given as a gift to the Jewish community by the Maharaja. And the Ner Tamid is the same kind of keyhole shape. I like to say that it looks like a harp or a lyre, L-Y-R-E, as the Teba. One of the most meaningful customs to me of the community is that there's a little stone lamp. I'm standing next to this little stone lamp, and at the end of Shabbat, the shamash of the synagogue would light a taper for Havdalah on the bima, and then he would, at the same time, all the people in the community would light their Havdalah candles at the same time. So as the light of the community emanated from the synagogue. Again, in the interior, there is a floor of 1,100 Chinese blue and white tiles, and no 2 is exactly alike. It's, you know, that game where you have to find what's different in this picture than the next one. That's how the floor is. But the most exciting thing to me in the synagogue is that there is a second bima. The Torah and the Haftarah were not read on Shabbat in the downstairs bima, but this bima that you have to reach by going up the stairs. And this is, again, to emulate how the ancient Israelites would go up to the temple to hear the words of Torah. And it's literally, we call going up to the Torah an aliyah, to go up. And this is literally going up to hear the Torah. So it just is like, makes me feel like I'm going up to Mount Sinai to hear the Torah when you have an aliyah. Today, when I originally started going to India, there were two wonderful women who still lived in Jewtown. One was Queenie Halegua, and she was a member of a very respected and wealthy Baghdadi family. I would visit her every time we went to Cochin, and sadly she passed away in the summer. She was basically the one who was the warden of the community, kept the copper plates, and she shared some of her pictures with me. This is her wedding picture, and this is a typical Cochini wedding outfit. And if you've been to Cochin, Sarah Cohen was the face of the community. She had a needle workshop, and she sold Judaica and other items, and she always sat in her window and smiled like this to every visitor who came by. And she passed away about 3 or 4 years ago. Probably in Cochin you'll find the most unusual place for a synagogue. So here you go with me. We're going into this plant store called Cochin Blossoms. They sell flowers, vegetable seeds, aquarium fish, birds. Ready? So we continue. We see this kind of dilapidated building, although it's just been repainted. And then as we go past the aquarium and the birds and the plants, this is what we see. So this synagogue was renovated by a man named Elias Yosefai, and he single-handedly raised donations from all over the world and reconstructed and renovated this synagogue. And he always welcomes us and talks about what life was like when the community was full and how his grandmother taught him the prayers. And inevitably he chokes up and tears start falling because he's the only one left in the community here. Here is the ark. Here he is talking to one of our groups. And here he is again. It's a wedding song. So it's sung in the B'nai Israel and also in the Cochini communities. So Babu, we call him Babu, and Joshua, we're singing it together. So we are going to end our tour of Jewish India in my hometown, Calcutta. And for Jewish visitors, Calcutta is full of remarkable surprises, especially its magnificent synagogues. The Jewish community numbered 5,000 here at its height in the 1940s and 50s. Today there are, I believe, 17 Jewish people left. Again, we lost one wonderful woman named Flower Silliman, who we always used to welcome us to her home. You'll see a picture of her in a little while. And she just passed away maybe 2 months ago. So my father was born in Calcutta. Here he is in front of the gates of the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, where he came to study from Calcutta for 5 years to receive his rabbinic ordination, and he went back to Calcutta to serve the community. He was influenced to pursue the rabbinate by a Jewish chaplain stationed in India during World War II named David Seligson. This is the Habonim youth group, and you can see Rabbi Seligson addressing the youth in the community, and there's that picture of Herzl again. So the first settler in Calcutta was named Shalom Dweik HaKohen. He was a jeweler from Aleppo, from Syria. He settled in Calcutta in 1798, enticed by the trade in Calcutta. The British Crown had already taken over in 1784 and made Calcutta the capital of British India. Shalom Kohen's son-in-law, Moses Dweik, was really the spiritual founder of the community. He built Neve Shalom, the first synagogue in Calcutta, in 1826, and it was rebuilt in 1913 and renovated again in 2018. Neve Shalom literally means abode of peace, but also just as Magen David was in Mumbai was named for David Sassoon, so Neve Shalom was named for Shalom HaKohen. This is actually the smallest of Calcutta's synagogues, if you can believe it. And all the synagogues have the same design, just on a different scale. So the Teba is again in the center, facing the Heichal, the Ark. The men will be sitting around the perimeter of the sanctuary. The women will be sitting upstairs. And here you can see a close-up of the Heichal, the Ark, which typically has 3 doors, but only the middle one opens. Then we have 30 years later, Moses Dweik also built the Beit El synagogue in 1856. And here you can see one of our groups. I don't know if Shirley, are you in this group? No. Okay, so here's the interior. It's a beautiful, graceful building with columns and marble floors and just a gorgeous Renaissance kind of architecture. And again, it was restored in 2018 by the community. Here's a close-up of the Ark. You can see the 3 doorways again, the half dome with a starry night. And in the courtyard, there is a matzah oven that was used just once a year to bake matzah for the entire community. There's also a mikveh in the courtyard of the synagogue. We are very proud in India that that the caretakers of our synagogues are actually Muslim. So here's one of the Muslim caretakers of the Magen David synagogue. These guys have been interviewed in publications all over the world as to how proud and loyal they are to the Jewish community. And so I like to present one of them to you here as well. So my father's synagogue, I showed you before, the Magen David synagogue. And this is the outside. It has a steeple, which you might think is a strange design for a Jewish building, and you'd be right, but it wasn't strange for the Christian architect who had designed it. It's a typical, the red brick and sort of red and yellow of the colonial British architecture. This is the same kind of design and architecture of the synagogue. And as anybody who's been to India will tell you that to get to the synagogue, we usually have to cross a very big street, and you are not allowed to cross that street by yourself because it's the traffic isn't going that fast, so it's not like you're in any danger, but you do have to go together to make sure that everybody is safe. and there's a lot of honking. But I'm not going to play that for you right now. Just let me say that the first thing that I do when we go into the gates, it's really an oasis of serenity. The first thing I do is I sit by this plaque with my father's name. He came back for the centenary of the synagogue, and so his name is here, Ezekiel and Maslia. And then the welcoming archway says, Ze hasha'ar ladonai tzadikim yavo uvo. This is the gate to God, righteous people shall enter within. It's really, I can't say enough about this synagogue. It's the most exquisite synagogue I've ever seen. No offense here, but it really feels like it has a soul, and not just that I'm a little partial to this building. You can hear that, but it's actually the truth. So here again is the Heichal, the Ark, and it's beautiful tile work. And whenever I come here, I imagine my parents standing on the teva, on the platform in front of the Heichal. And then when we stay at the Great Eastern Hotel, I have gone searching for the place of their wedding reception, and I believe I found it. So I imagine this scene of my parents and the wedding cake, or as I like to say, the wedding cake and my parents. So here's another view, the Teba, the Bima facing the Heichal, and the beautiful tiled floor, and the archways with different verses from the Psalms encouraging us to sing and praise God. Here is the Ark is not just like a cabinet that you open, it's actually an entire room that at one time held as many as 75 or 80 Sifrei Torah in wooden cases covered with silver. And if you don't believe me, here's a picture taken on Simchat Torah, when all the Sifrei Torah were taken out of the Heichal and displayed on a special stand around the perimeter of the sanctuary. So it really was an amazing community, and it was a custom to go into the Heichal after services on every Shabbat and kiss each and every Sefer Torah with our hands, not with the intermediary of a Siddur. So today there are just 2 Sifrei Torah left in the Ark in perpetuity, but I just want to share how emotional it has been for me to return to the synagogue where my ancestors prayed and led services. On our first trip back in 2015, I led a weekday service, which I learned specially from my father of how to lead it. And this is Flower Silliman, a friend of the family who had moved back to Calcutta after some years away. And you can probably see how emotional we were at that point. And I always sit in the benches where my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my father sat. On my first trip with my parents back in 1997, my father revealed all these things to me, and it made the community come alive. And I look up into the space where my grandmother would have sat, and I never met her. She died in childbirth in 1937. So you never know what's going to happen when you visit the synagogue. And so in 2019, we had a special member of our group. His name was Rabbi Jonathan Cohen. And he was both of B'nai Israel and Baghdadi background. And he also served as Chazan of the Bevis Marks Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue in London. And when my family came to the United States, my father became the rabbi of Mikveh Israel, the Spanish and Portuguese colonial synagogue in Philadelphia. So Jonathan and I knew some of the same melodies, and we stopped at the Magen David synagogue before Shabbat just to take pictures, but we were so inspired by the awesome space that we just started to sing together. This last psalm of the Hallel, Baruch Haba, and so I just wanted to share that with you a little bit. Baruch Haba, welcome in the name of God. And it ends, Hodu Ladonai Ki Tov, praise God because God is good, because it is good. So here you go. So I'll just end with one more anecdote from, I won't test you on all of my trips, I promise. But in 2016, my daughter Shoshana came with me to India. It was the first time, the only time actually, that she visited India. And we did all the touristy things. She rode elephants with me in Jaipur and crossed off the Taj Mahal on her bucket list and dressed in Indian clothing with her friend Miranda and bought a sari. And in Calcutta, we went to the cemetery and visited my grandparents' graves, her great-grandparents. And in the Magen David synagogue, I sat in my grandfather's seat and she sat in her grandfather's seat. And wrapped in the talit that I had made for her bat mitzvah, sitting in the place that her grandparents had started their lives together, she told me that she felt surrounded by family. And she had prepared a short aliyah to read from the Torah, and the words that she chanted described the way the children of Israel carry their knapsacks on their backs, filled with matzah on their shoulders as they left Egypt. And as she stood before the open Torah, the 8th generation of our family in India, the words that she sang resonated beyond their original meaning. Mish'arotam tzururot besimlotam al shichmam. I reinterpret, we carry our heritage with us. It could hardly be a coincidence. So thank you very, very much. And I hope you've enjoyed this taste of India's Jewish heritage. And maybe some of you will join me in person now that we are going to India again every November and February. I'd like to share the fact that India's Jewish heritage is something that Joshua and I feel very deeply and personally, and that's what we share with all of our guests. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to visit my website, and there's information on the table outside, cards, information about the trip, and so on. I'm very, very happy you joined me on this journey today. Do you have any questions?
We'll move the microphone. I don't have a question, but I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed your absolutely delightful presentation.
I was just wanting to clarify, like, since you moved back to the United States as a child, how much time did you get to spend in India between the move and 1997 when you went back with your parents? And how much did they talk about it to you at growing up?
Thank you for that question. When we came in 1964, until I went back in 1997, I'd never been back to India. My parents went back once or twice. But Philadelphia, where I grew up, was a little oasis of Indian Baghdadi Jewish customs. So all our customs for Shabbat, holidays, Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, were all, we maintained everything. My father taught us the Calcutta Torah trope and Haftarah tropes, and around the table on Shabbat, all the songs, all the Pizmonim, all the Zmirot were from Calcutta. So definitely it was maintained, and my father, he missed the community, he missed the customs, he missed the traditions, he missed the family. So he shared, and my mother had to learn how to cook because she didn't really know how to cook or drive or anything because we had domestic help in India. So it was definitely a transition, and but yeah, here I am today.
Yeah, so first of all, I echo the gentleman's comments. It's a beautiful presentation, very touching. Thank you. One question, but I assume these are the synagogues in India are considered Sephardic synagogues, or yes? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
But let me just clarify what I mean by that. I'll clarify what I mean by that. So there's a little bit of, I guess, when people say Sephardic, a lot of people will take that to mean, Sephardic meaning Spain and Portugal. But the way that we use it is either your custom is Ashkenazic or Sephardic. A lot of times people now use the term Mizrahi, meaning Eastern, to talk about Jews from the Middle East. So we always just, we follow the Sephardic Sidurim. There's, Sephardic and Ashkenazic Sidurim have differences. So as far as the customs and the rituals, yes, they are Sephardic. And so that's why I answered that. I don't myself, I would say Sephardic Mizrahi, but I believe that Mizrahi is more of a political term that came about in Israel. So that's just my clarification. Yeah. The question is there any chance that the Jewish communities would become revived with an influx of Jews from outside of India? I honestly doubt it, although I don't like reading these stories that are published where they say the last Jew in Cochin, the last Jew is in Calcutta. It really is heartbreaking to me. The writing is probably on the wall. The synagogues are preserved as government heritage monuments. But I don't see the likelihood of Jewish life returning in a great way to India.
Two more, let's do it. Can I ask why your family left India to the United States?
So, as I said, my father was the rabbi of the community, and most of the community was leaving. He sent about half the community on Aliyah to Israel, and many other people left after Indian independence. There was a time of great chaos and uncertainty as to what the economic situation in India would be once the British left. Many people weren't sure what would happen in India. So despite the fact that there wasn't anti-Semitism, there was a lot of uncertainty, and of course, people felt both religious and political Zionism. My aunt and uncle, my father's two siblings, made Aliyah in 1945 to Palestine. And my father took a different path, chose the rabbinate, but as the community was dwindling, my parents, mostly my father, was trying to find a place elsewhere to plant the family. So we didn't go to Israel, we didn't go to England, we didn't go to Australia, and an opportunity came for him to be the rabbi of Mikveh Israel, the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue in Philadelphia. So that's why we left. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay.
So now we do have one more.
Thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. What happened to the other 73, the 73 Torah books?
Let me just ask them so you don't have to run around. Hi. Besides that question, I grew up in Philly. I'm wondering where the synagogue is that your father was the rabbi of. Where in Philly is it?
It was in North Philadelphia, but now it's just an independent mall. It moved in 1976. Mikveh Israel. It's right by the Liberty Bell. The Museum of American Jewish History used to be in the same building, but now it's a separate entity. So the 75 Sifrei Torah, the Sifrei Torah, there were so many Sifrei Torah because people dedicated Torahs in memory of relatives. And so they were used in rotation throughout the year, and also if somebody wanted to have their Torah read at a special occasion for the family, then it was also read at that time. And when people left India, they either took their family Torahs with them, or they have been donated to different synagogues and institutions throughout the world.
Rachel, thank you again.
Thank you.
I want to let everybody know that no passages next week, but in 2 weeks, we will be at Congregation Beit Tefillah for Ryan Belrose on a little more political type of lecture. It'll be about advocacy today on behalf of Israel when you hear all kinds of, anti-Semitic news, just he's trying to clear the air and say, let's really know what's being said about Israel and how we could be better advocates. So thank you for coming tonight. Again, like Rachel said, there's some information on the table out here.
So there are a few flyers, and then there's the itinerary and more details. And I only brought like a couple of samples of books. So if anybody is interested, just look at the information. Thank you so much.